Good morning. Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Medfield, and welcome to everyone streaming in from home. We're so glad you all can be with us this morning. This congregation first gathered in 1651, and this historic meeting house where we worship this morning was built in 1789 on the unceded ancestral lands of the Wampanoag. Welcome to this place. Here we search for truth and understanding. Here we celebrate life and we contemplate its mysteries. Here we share healing and wholeness. So whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, we welcome you to this congregation.
This morning's chalice reading is the symbol of our shared faith by Reverend Dodenhoff. Joy and grief, health and sickness, light and darkness, peace and anger, life and death, wholeness and brokenness. We each bring all of these here to this sanctuary of unity in diversity. For this 1 hour of this one day, and pour them out, commingling the oil of our lives to become the flame of this chalice, the symbol of our shared living faith.
Come into this place with your whole self, the parts that are raw and exposed, the parts that are beaming with joy, the parts that are seeking truth. Come into this place, open your hearts, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey. Some faces new, others familiar, and all welcoming you here, now, to this moment. Come, let us worship together. Please rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, which is number 1008 in the Teal hymnal.
When our heart is in a holy place, when your presence
seated. Now I'd invite forward Jennifer Goodman to lead us in our time for all ages. And for all of those we've lost, perhaps recently or long ago, I'll now light our candle of remembrance. All right, well, now it is time for the children to head out to religious exploration. Let's sing them out as they go. Join me now in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love, spirit of life. This morning, let us remember to breathe deeply, to rest, to take in. Help us to remember to pause before we act. And then to take in another deep breath, poised on the edge, and risk jumping in, risk taking action, risk speaking up, risk using all of the gifts that we have been given. So that at the end of our life, we can say with absolute clarity that no part of our existence was wasted in fear of failure or fear of success. Hold us. Prepare us the way to begin to offer the gift of our awakened presence, full of love, full of light. Quiet our hearts as we enter into a time of silent meditation.
Faith and
Amen. Now I'd invite forward Martha Castle for the morning's reading.
This reading is by Reverend Howard Thurman. There is something in you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in other people. And if you can't hear it, then you are reduced by that much. If I were to ask you, what is the thing that you desire most in life, you would say a lot of things off of the top of your head, most of which you wouldn't believe, but you would think that you were saying the things that I thought you ought to think you should say. But I think that if you were stripped to whatever there is in you that is literal and irreducible, and you tried to answer that question, the answer might be something like this. I want to feel that I am thoroughly and completely understood, so that now and then I can take my guard down and look out around me and not feel that I will be destroyed with my defenses down. I want to feel completely vulnerable, completely naked, completely exposed, and absolutely secure.
Thank you, Martha. Well, today I would like to start with an essay written by Anne Lamont entitled, Why I Make Sam Go to Church. She writes, Sam is the only kid he knows who goes to church, who is made to go to church 2 or 3 times a month. He rarely wants to. This is not exactly true. The truth is that he never wants to go. What young boy would rather be in church on the weekends than hanging out with a friend? It does not help him to be reminded that once he's there, he tends to enjoy himself, that he gets to spend the time drawing in the little room outside of the sanctuary, that he only actually has to sit still and listen during the short children's sermon. It does not help that I always pack some snacks, some Legos, his art supplies, and bring along any friend of his whom he can lure into this churchy web. It does not help that he genuinely cares for the people there. All that matters to him is that he is alone among his colleagues. He's forced to spend Sunday morning in church. You might think, noting the bitterness, the resignation, that he was being made to sit through a 6-hour Latin Mass. Or you might wonder why I make this strapping, exuberant young boy come with me most weeks. And if you were to ask, this is what I would say. I make him come because I can. I outweigh him by nearly 75 pounds. But that is only part of it. The main reason is that I want to give him what I found in the world, which is to say, a path and a little light to see by. Most of the people I know who have what I want, which is to say, purpose, heart, balance, gratitude, joy, are people with a deep sense of spirituality. They are people in community who pray or practice their faith. They are Buddhists, Jews, Christians, people banding together to work on themselves and for human rights. They follow a brighter light than the glimmer of their own candle. They are part of something beautiful. I saw something once from the Jewish Theological Seminary that said, quote, a human life is like a single letter of the alphabet. It can be meaningless, or it can be part of a great meaning. Our funky little church is filled with people who are working for peace and freedom, who are out there on the streets and inside praying. And they are home writing letters, and they are out at shelters with giant platters of food. You know, when I was at the end of my rope, the people at St. Andrew tied a knot in it for me and helped me hold on. The church became my home, and the old meaning, home. that it's where you show up. They have to let you in. They let me in. They even said, "You come back now." Sam was welcomed and prayed for at St. Andrew 7 months before he was born. When I announced during the worship that I was pregnant, people cheered. All these old people raised in Bible-thumping homes in the Deep South clapped. Even the woman whose grown-up boys had been or were doing time in jails or prisons rejoiced for me. And then almost immediately they set about providing for us. They brought clothes. They brought me casseroles to keep in the freezer. They brought me assurance that this baby was going to be part of the family. And they began slipping me money. Now, a number of the older black women lived pretty close to the bone financially, on very small Social Security checks. But routinely, they sidled up to me and stuffed bills in my pockets, 10s and 20s. It was always done so stealthily that you might have thought they were slipping me bindles of cocaine. One of the most consistent donors was a very old woman named Mary Williams, who's in her mid-80s now. So beautiful with her crushed hats and hallelujahs. She always brought me plastic baggies filled with dimes, noosed with little wire twists. I was usually filled with a sense of something like shame until I remembered that wonderful line of Blake's, that we are here to learn to endure the beams of love. I would take a long, slow, deep breath and force these words out of my strangulated throat. Thank you. Mary Williams always sits in the very back by the door. She is one of those unusually beautiful women, beautiful like a river. She has dark skin, a long, broad nose, sweet, full lips, and what the theologian Howard Thurman calls quiet eyes. She raised 5 children as a single mom. One of her boys drowned when he was young, and she has the softness and generosity and toughness of someone who has endured great loss. Sam loves her, and she loves him, and she still brings us baggies filled with dimes, even though I'm doing so much better now. She doesn't know that I no longer really need people to slip me money. What's so dazzling to me, what's so painful and poignant, is that she doesn't bother with what I think she knows or doesn't know about my financial life. She just knows we need another bag of dimes. And that is why I make Sam go to church. The Reverend Fred Muir claims that you can't be a Unitarian Universalist all by yourself. He says that even if you grew up as a Unitarian Universalist, even if you used to belong to a UU church someplace, but you left it because you didn't agree with the decision made by the congregation, or perhaps you didn't like the minister, even if you agree with our UU principles, he says you can't be a Unitarian Universalist unless you are part of a UU community. He says this is so because the thing that makes us UU is that we are bound together through covenant, promising to do one another our mutual trust and support. You know, many of us who came into Unitarian Universalism from other faith traditions, who have been raised in creedal faiths, in which the thing that binds the community together is a statement of shared belief in God and perhaps who Jesus was. You may have grown up saying the Apostles' Creed, you know, the one that begins, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and his Son, Jesus Christ. It goes on. I'm sure some of you could still repeat that. But we as Unitarian Universalists are not a creedal faith. We don't have a statement of belief that we have to subscribe to in order to be UUs. Many have assumed that our UU principles are a creed, that this is our statement of belief. Our UU principles state that we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, that will promote justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations, that will encourage each other towards spiritual growth, that it's important to be free in our search for truth and meaning, and that will use the democratic process, that will work toward a peaceful and justice-filled world community, and that will respect the interdependent web of life. But this is not a statement of faith. It's not a creed. What it is in reality is our vision of how we are to be together in beloved community. A beloved community that we are here to help create. This vision, however, is not uniquely ours. There are many other people of faith who share this vision, who are also working to bring about a beloved community. There are many in other faith traditions who read through our UU principles and are able to say, yes, I agree with those things, and they're important to me as well. Our UU principles and purposes begin with this statement. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote. And then, after stating the principles and the sources we draw from for guidance and inspiration, it concludes with this statement. Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith, we are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and our mutual support. It is this that Fred Muir says that makes us uniquely UU, that we have entered into a covenant with each other. As he says, whether it's an annual canvas or a capital fund drive, teaching religious education or creating adult enrichment, attending morning worship, mindfulness meditation, or an earth-centered ritual, landscaping the grounds, singing in the choir, or volunteering in the office, these and everything else we do are grounded in covenant and the voluntary promises and commitments that we make to one another. It's covenant that makes us Unitarian Universalists, he says. We are a covenantal faith. As glorious and appealing as the mission and vision are, these are not what we promise and commit to. What we promise and commit to is mutual trust and support. Our covenant is grounded in community, in being together. One radical implication of this is that it's impossible to be a Unitarian Universalist alone. Well, James Luther Adams, one of the greatest UU theologians of the 20th century, reminds us that we cannot elude the fact that the condition of being human is that we are made for community. We belong to a cosmos that is social, he says. Anne Lamott said something similar when she told us about something she'd seen once from the Jewish Theological Seminary that said, quote, a human life is like a single letter of the alphabet. It can be meaningless, or it can be part of a great meaning. We are made for community. Now, I don't know if I agree with Fred Muir, who suggests that it's impossible to be a UU alone. But I do know that our experience of being Unitarian Universalists deepens and takes on greater meaning when we join together in community, when we join together in mutual trust and support, when we are able to truly be vulnerable together. And so this is such a big part of what we're always striving for to do here in this church. Find ways in which we can help to build beloved community. Those of us who have been here for a while know that we have our own Mary Williamses here. We have our own Sams, people we love, and those who love us in return. We know when we need a baggie filled with dimes, noosed with little wire twists. And those of us who've been around for a while know that it's as we grow to know each other, as we open our lives and become more vulnerable with one another, as we learn to trust and to support each other, that our experience of community deepens and grows. When we stand up during worship and share that we're pregnant and people cheer in response. When we light a candle for a parent who died or a brother who committed suicide. When we fix a meal for someone recovering from surgery. Or when we're on the receiving end and learn to endure the beams of love. When we stand up during candles of joy and sorrow and talk about the embarrassment of being between jobs and what a blow it is to our self-esteem. When we tell our stories in small groups, share our spiritual journeys, or listen to one another's ideas with respect and each other's yearnings with compassion, we're weaving together the fabric of this community. It takes time. It takes a willingness to risk opening up at least part of our lives to one another. It takes a willingness to be here, to be vulnerable, to actually show up. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, in her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, tells this story. She says, I once heard a story from an old African-American man in the Mid-South. He came out of an alley as I was sitting amidst the graffiti of the inner city park. Some people would call him crazy, for he spoke to anyone and to no one. He shuffled along with one finger held out as though to test the wind's direction. In our tradition, we'd call such a man El Bulto, the bundle, one who has been touched by the gods. For souls such as his carry a certain kind of wear and show it to anyone who will look, anyone who has the eyes to see and the sense to shelter it. This particular kindly El Bulto gave me this story. It was about a certain kind of ancestral transmission. He calls the story one stick, two stick. This is the way of old African kings, he whispered. In the story, an old man is dying and calls his people to his side. He gives a short, sturdy stick to each of his many offspring. To his wives and relatives, break the stick, he instructs them. With some effort, they all snap their sticks in half. This is how it is when a soul is alone without anyone. They can be easily broken. The old man next gives each of his kin another stick and says, this is how I would like you to live after I pass. Put your sticks together in bundles of 2s and 3s. Now break these bundles in half. No one can break the sticks when there are 2 or 3 in a bundle. The old man smiles. We are strong when we stand with another soul. When we are with one another, we cannot be broken. Now, these are perilous times in which we are living. We're concerned about the ongoing war in the Ukraine. We worry about mass shootings and whether we and our families are safe. We're concerned about our futures and the futures of our children as the environmental crisis becomes ever more perilous. We're uneasy over the erosions of civil liberties, especially for those who fit certain profiles. Fear has been mounting, distrust growing, and we watch as the walls that keep us apart get higher and thicker. There's a Hasidic tale in which an old rabbi once asked his pupils how they could tell when the night had ended and that the day had begun. Could it be, asked one of the students, when you see an animal in the distance and tell whether it's a sheep or a dog? No, answered the rabbi. Another asked, is it when you can look at a tree in the distance and tell whether it's a fig tree or a peach tree? No, answered the rabbi. Then what is it, the pupils demanded? It is when you can look on the face of any man or woman and see that it is your sister or brother. Because if you cannot see this, it is still the night. We are living in a world in which it is still night. But here in this congregation, in this religious community bound together by covenant, we are able to look at each other and know that we are brothers and sisters. We gain strength as we stand together. More courage, perhaps, to face the coming of the new day. Less fear, perhaps. More compassion and love. Not only for each other, but for those in our larger community as well. Perhaps it's when people like us, people of faith, whether we're Baptist or Episcopalians or Buddhists or Jews or Muslims or Unitarian Universalists, when we gather together in community and learn to know each other as brothers and sisters and know that our neighbors are our brothers and sisters as well. Perhaps it is then that the night will end and a new day will begin. So may it be. Amen. Well, now I would invite forward Don Rolfe, a member of our annual fund drive, for a moment with the congregation.
Hi, I'm Don Rolfe. I'm with the annual fund drive. This is the opportunity where we can show that we are bundles of sticks together, standing strong in the face of the rest of the world. This is our community. We're 21 pledges in, just under half. We're $96,000 committed. That's just under 2/3. So we're well on our way. The fund drive really ends next Sunday, at Commitment Sunday. So we're hoping that the rest of the 24 people who have not pledged yet can get their pledges in by then, so we'll all celebrate together the contributions we're all making to this congregation to keep it strong. And with that, I would like to ask you to be generous, not only with your donations of time and leadership, but also with your donations of money as we take the collection to help support this community.
Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, Abide With Me, number 101 in your gray hymnal.
When
The worship of the gathered community is now ended. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love to share in the ongoing worship of this community in dispersion. Carry with you what is precious to all of us: reverence for all life, beauty that displays itself in love, and a deep, abiding peace. I'll now extinguish our chalice, but may its light and warmth stay in our hearts until we meet again. Here ends our worship.